And as a reminder to those participating on Zoom, you can view the presentation in the language of your choice. For those of you who'd like to view the presentation in English, at the top of your Zoom screen, click the viewing option followed by English presentation. And for the French presentation, click the French presentation under the viewing option. And now I'll hand it over to René Amilcar, General Manager, Transit Services Department, to get us started. Bonjour, René.
Bonjour, Chair Gower. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to everyone for being here today.
Council, members of the media, and all those watching online. I'm happy to share that Saint Laurent Station has fully reopened for customers as of the start of service this morning. Train Line 1 service started on time, running from Tunis Pasteur to Blair Station, serving every platform. I would like to say thank you to our customers for your patience over the last few days with this inconvenience. As you will see in the presentation, this was complex work affecting a large area of the station that could not be rushed. I'm thankful to Tammy Rose for joining me today. Her team has been working nonstop with our transit engineering team to get us to where we are today. I know many of you have questions about the Saint Laurent station, and we have experts with us, in addition to Tammy and myself, to provide you with as much information as possible. This afternoon, we will cover what led us to temporarily close the train platforms at Saint Laurent station, the work that has been completed, and next steps. Next slide, please. I would like to start by giving some context of what we are talking about today. The picture on your screen is what Saint Laurent Station looked like before this issue arose.
René, excuse-moi, je ne veux pas t'interrompre, mais la présentation...
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're not in presentation mode. We're still...
Is the media on the line? We're not in presentation mode?
One second, Tammy, we'll get that fixed.
Yep. Thank you, Tammy.
I think we're good to continue, René. We're seeing the photo of Saint Laurent Station now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My apologies for that. So I will now speak to what led us to closing the train platforms. Every day, during overnight hours when the train is not in service, there is a range of inspections done across Line 1 to ensure we are ready for customers the next day. During these routine inspections, it was noted that some tiles were discolored and had been disturbed. As you can see, I hope, on the right-hand side of your screen, this is what alerted us to a possible issue that needed to be examined further. Undertaking these daily inspections allows us to find and address potential issues before they become more serious or pose a safety risk. In this instance, while there was an impact to service at Saint Laurent Station, identifying this issue now has allowed us to quickly address it and work to put in place a long-term fix. Once this was discovered, out of an abundance of caution, we took immediately action and closed the train platforms to give crews the space to inspect the ceiling safely. Next slide, please. Now I will speak to the work that was done to address the issue that was noted during routine inspections. First, engineering teams removed some suspended ceiling tiles to do a preliminary inspection and make recommendations on next steps.
René, I'm just going to pause you. I haven't seen the slides advanced. I'm not sure if anyone else has. I see a couple shaking heads. So we should be on slide 5 now, I believe.
Chair, my apologies. The team is working on it. There's a small technical hiccup. If you give us just a second, we'll have it fixed.
Okay. We'll take a pause then for a few seconds until.
Thank you very much, because I don't see my slides.
So we're on slide 5 now on the screen. Are we good to keep going?
Yeah, I'm talking about slide 5, effectively.
Okay.
So maybe I can just say it again. First, engineering teams remove some suspended ceiling tiles to do a preliminary inspection and make recommendations on next steps. It was then determined that to support a complete and detailed inspection, all suspended ceiling tiles on the platform area had to be removed. Once this was complete, workers removed corroded portions of the suspended ceiling structure and reinforced other sections. This work posed an additional challenge as a part of the area that needed to be worked on was adjacent to the overhead catenary system. This is why we needed to temporarily suspend Line 1 service late last evening and de-energize the system in that area. This provided us with the additional time required to complete the remaining work in areas that were close to the overhead catenary system and inspect the concrete roof slab, which allowed us to open for service this morning. Once all work was complete, a final thorough inspection was done and sign-off was provided by the engineering teams. Next slide, please. We should be on slide 6. Just verify if it's okay. All right. On your screen now is what the station looks like today. As you can see, this was complex work over a wide area. It required teams to work safely on a specialized equipment. It was done meticulously to ensure all issues were addressed. Next slide, please. Once the work was complete, engineering inspections confirmed that all hazards associated with the concrete roof slab and the suspended ceiling structure had been fully mitigated. We have a rigorous process in place to ensure the ongoing safety of our customers and staff. Multiple engineering teams worked together, and the Infrastructure and Water Services Department provided engineering on the concrete roof slab. Then, Rideau Transit Maintenance provided their sign-off on the suspended ceiling infrastructure. Lastly, our transit engineer services confirmed that the station could reopen. After all of these validations were complete, the station was cleaned for customers and reopened this morning. This next slide, please, and I will turn over to Tammy, please.
Merci beaucoup, René. Before I get into the details of the next steps, I would like to provide some context around the tunnel infrastructure. The structure predates the construction of the LRT. The tunnel was built in 1983 for bus transit operations over top and transitway below. This is 40-year-old aging infrastructure. It is normal to see some concrete spalling on the surface, which is when the finished layer of concrete detaches from the main slab without impacting the structural integrity. And this was the concern that was first noted back in January earlier this year, where some small pieces of concrete were observed in the tunnel. It is important to note that what happened over the weekend was not related to the January event. However, on the topic of water infiltration, I can confirm that there have been significant works completed to date to address this. Just this past December, a $6.8 million investment was made with a focus to mitigate water infiltration. But we recognize that there is some infiltration ongoing, and we will continue to investigate potential options to seal the remaining sources of water. Moving forward, we are going to conduct the OSIM inspection of the entire tunnel. As mentioned, we will also explore those options to seal other sources of water infiltration. And all of this work will inform our future rehabilitation plans. This work will be planned and coordinated with all the partners to minimize any impacts and disturbances to the customers. Next slide, please. And I think I'm turning it back over to you, Renee.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I will now talk about next steps that we are doing proactively on O-Trend Line 1. As a precaution, we have asked RTM to conduct proactive inspections of the suspended ceiling infrastructure at other underground line stations. This includes Parliament, Rideau, and Lion stations, which have similar ceiling infrastructure. The concrete in those areas is much more recent than the concrete roof slab at Saint Laurent Station. Nevertheless, we know there have been incidents of water infiltration, and we want to make sure we understand the impact on the suspended ceiling infrastructure in those stations. RTM confirmed this morning that weekly inspections have been and continue to be in place. However, out of an abundance of caution, they proactively inspected 2 of the 3 stations. So far, there has been nothing to report. The 3rd station will be inspected shortly. Next slide, please. We have provided a lot of information today, and I want to recap the important things to remember. The city has frequent, routine, and mandatory inspections of all municipal assets. RTM continues to undertake regular inspections of stations and rail infrastructure. The Infrastructure and Water Services Department has protocols in place for regular inspection of citywide assets, including the Saint Laurent Tunnel. Future inspections and our minor rehabilitation efforts in Saint Laurent Station will be coordinated to minimize impacts to customers. Thank you, and I will now turn over to you, Chair.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Renee, and thank you, Tammy, as well. Could I just ask, there was one slide that we didn't see due to the technical issues earlier, and I think it's slide 4. And Renee, you did a good job describing this. This is some of the discoloration, which was the first indication. Maybe just, again, for people who are tuned in, can you explain what we're seeing here, what the arrows are indicating?
Sure, Chair. So what we see here, it's a decoloration, which is abnormal. So that's why we asked for more investigation.
Okay, thank you. I think because of the number of councillors we have, rather than go in ward order, I'll ask councillors if you can use the raise hand function, and then we can see who'd like to ask a question. And I see Councillor Brockington is up first. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Are we limited to one question, or what's the game plan here?
We'll start with one question and one follow-up, and then we'll see how we're doing on our time.
So I thank you. I just want to expand on the notion of overall assessment or inspection of tunnels. We had the incident in January. Here's another incident in the same tunnel. Please expand on how we assess these tunnels, the frequency. When have we done a top to bottom assessment of the Saint Laurent Tunnel in particular? This is now a second issue in less than half a year. I keep telling people the tunnels are safe, the infrastructure is safe, trying to maintain public confidence and trust in the system. Here's another issue in the same tunnel. So can I just have some understanding of the assessments that are undertaken, and when have we done a top to bottom full-scale review of this tunnel in particular? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. I can attempt to take a look at some of the things that you mentioned. We did a full inspection of the tunnel in 2020, and we're planning a full re-inspection this year. And what we found in 2020, that there was 95% of the tunnel structure was in a good state of repair. So what we are talking about in January and over the weekend are localized areas where there has been some concern. It is aging infrastructure, and so delamination of concrete, which was the issue first noted in January, is to be expected. And there is some work also where there is sounding. So basically, you are using an instrument to tap the concrete and listen if there's any hollow voids. And basically, this is where it detaches. You proactively remove that concrete. It doesn't provide any structural stability, so the structure is safe. There is no concern with that. And so moving forward in terms of frequency and what we would call maintenance activities such as this, we will take a look at that precautionary remediation with OC Transpo and with RTM. But we have a strong confidence in terms of this is a 40-year-old tunnel that is in a fairly good state of repair.
And Chair, can I just follow up?
Yep, absolutely. Follow-up question.
So Madame Amical stated that the observation of discolored tiles is what triggered further assessment. If we look at stations, the underground stations of the LRT under downtown, one can see cracking in concrete and a colored substance that is permeating through the concrete that you can see in sections. It's probably a different matter, but can someone talk to the root cause of this? We've been observing this for some time. Is this a cause of concern, and how is this being addressed? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like maybe to ask Enrique if you can provide some answer, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So regarding these 2 points, we are talking about a very different situation. So the downtown stations are a new infrastructure. We haven't seen any kind of pathology that is concerning. Obviously, we are all aware about some issues about water leaks, which is something relatively normal in these kind of infrastructures, but nothing that lead us to any specific concern. So this cracking that can be seen in some areas on the concrete is not a specific concern. I mean, we perform biannually inspections. So far, all the inspections lead us to think that the structure is in a status of good repair. Regarding the decoloration, this is linked with these water leaks, which is something that we are trying to address. We are working in that solution, but there is no risk on these water leaks. So far, all the, let's say, auxiliary structures, that the ones sustaining the sailings, are inspected. There are some level of corrosion, which is normal. I mean, it's in the areas where there are some water leaks, but it's totally under control and is under good inspection regime.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Chair Gower. Thanks for the update. Transparency is core to building trust with our transit riders, so I appreciate this update today. My question is about responsibility. I noted in the annual compliance report for 2023, when the tunnel inspections were done for the compliance report, it highlighted the responsibility differences there, and I just wanted to draw out a little bit of that in terms of accountability and responsibility. I know that the line and Parliament stations are newer, and it was specifically highlighted that the St. Laurent Tunnel is under the responsibility of the city. What does that mean in terms of regular maintenance, in terms of responsibility, in terms of contractual obligation? Are there differences with regard to our relationship with RTM, with the St. Laurent Tunnel vis-a-vis the other tunnel systems, Lane and Parliament, or is the maintenance all the same? Could you just clarify for me what it meant in that report and what the actual operations and maintenance implications are to the age and different management of St. Laurent, if there is such.
Perhaps I can start. Renee, do you want me to go ahead? Okay, I see you nodding. So the report does state that the tunnel, the concrete, that infrastructure is under the ownership and responsibility of the City of Ottawa. The suspended ceiling that is attached to the concrete and the tunnel is the responsibility of RTM. So the city continues to have responsibility for overall rehabilitation works, inspections, minor repairs, and maintenance is a responsibility of the City of Ottawa. It is a functioning light rail system, and so it's very important for us to coordinate that work with OC Transpo, with RTM, in order to minimize any customer disruptions and to try to do as much of that during what is called engineering hours. And so the last project that we just did, the $6.8 million investment, the primary focus of that work was to address water filtration. So that was about a 20-month capital project. It had been in design for about a year. So the city is proactively engaged and aware of those issues and is working very hard to mitigate all those.
Maybe, Enrique, you can summarize what kind of inspection you do on our Parliament, Rideau, and Lion, please.
Yeah, correct. In a regular basis, we are doing bi-weekly inspections of the auxiliary structures, which is the sailing. We have developed a specific protocol to identify different kinds of pathologies based on the visual inspection of the sailing tiles. This triggers, if necessary, further inspection in case we identify some kind of anomaly. We dismount part of these tiles and we do a further inspection on the supporting structure. Normally, well, so far, we haven't seen relevant incidences. We are all aware about the presence of some water leaks in specific locations. So in these areas, when we identify some changes or some concerns, we do this thorough inspection, and so far there has not been any specific concern, but some kind of corrosion that is completely under control.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Hill?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Gower. Just to clarify then, the tunnel itself at St. Laurent is under the ownership responsibility management of the city, and the auxiliary infrastructure surrounding, such as the tiles in St. Laurent, are under the responsibility of RTM to manage. And at the line and Parliament stations, is that relationship the same, or is the tunnel management different in those two tunnels?
There, you are correct for the Saint Laurent Tunnel. So the tunnel is under the City of Ottawa's responsibility, and the tiles and the structure are under RTM responsibility. However, for the rest of the LRT structure, tunnel, everything are under RTM responsibility. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask maybe Richard to explain the oversight, because for sure RTM has his own inspections, but we as OC Transpo, we're doing our oversight, and maybe Richard can summarize the job that we are doing there, please.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. So to talk a little bit about the work that Transit Engineering Services does on Confederation Line 1, then we provide review of documentation, we provide audit functions, we provide regular walkthroughs of the work, and we provide a coordination role when activities such as this recent incident at Saint Laurent occur. And so the engineers and members of staff and technicians with Transit Engineering Services are kind of fully engaged with these activities, providing oversight. So this is in addition to the work that we engage with TRA, Transportation Resource Associates, that helps us work on return to service plans when we're dealing with an interruption to rail service.
Thank you, Chair. I'll cede and perhaps get back on if that's permitted later.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Menard.
Thanks very much, Chair Gower. Obviously, this is really concerning because, as you know, Chair, we just had a conversation about this issue just 1 month ago, and this exact conversation was about the safety of that tunnel and debris falling at that time. And it was determined then and said to us then that this tunnel had been inspected, that it meets, that it is in compliance, and that it meets the standards. That was just 1 month ago that we were told that, and now we're seeing more of the same issue, that delamination and concrete falling, and which is obviously a big concern, not just in the actual safety issues, but the removal of service from the station. So I guess I really want to know why we were told in April that this was in compliance and had been inspected and was essentially good to go, when we're seeing this issue just 1 month later. So why were councillors told that at committee?
René, are you okay with me starting off? Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think it's important to note that what happened in January is not related to what happened over the weekend. So a lot of the concern and causes of concern was around the water infiltration that had been going on for a number of years. And so we had mentioned during the presentation, we have just now completed a significant investment over top to mitigate those sources of leakage. And we do have evidence that this has had a significant impact. And so with the roof panels removed, our engineer took the opportunity to proactively go in and sound the concrete and do any delamination work. So those panels are heavy. It's a lot of coordination in order to do. So there was an opportunity to do that work proactively. And just to note that the falling concrete was not a concern that was raised that triggered a lot of the inspection over the weekend. So it is mainly related to the infiltration of water.
Okay, I'll just go through, because even if it is the infiltration of water, that's still a concerning issue that probably should have been mitigated when we were told it was safe just a month ago. From the Light Rail Regulatory Monitor and Compliance Officer Annual Report for 2023 that was presented just in April, it noted that the ST Laurent Tunnel has 4 distinct structures. So the province requires tunnel and structural inspection to be done every 2 years. We skipped some of them because there was under construction, but the trains were still running. So we likely should have still had those inspection. And only 1 structure had its regular inspection in 2022. The other 3 had the inspection canceled due to construction. So is the current issue in the structure that was inspected in 2022 or one of the structures that wasn't inspected in 2022?
Councillor, the issue of water infiltration is something that has been noted for a while now. And so we have records that date back to 1996 where extensive work was done. There's expansion joints over top of the tunnel. And so there's been significant repairs, rehabilitation, and this latest project in order to mitigate that water infiltration. So that has been a known concern.
I guess the issue is the debris falling, right? So after the debris issue from January, did we do tunnel and structural inspections on the other 3 structures?
We are finalizing the procurement of our consultant to start the full inspection of the tunnel this year momentarily.
Okay, so those have not, just to be clear, those have not been done to date.
So as we mentioned previously, so our next inspection is 2024, and we are hiring the consultant, and we'll be working very closely with our TM and with OC Transpo to coordinate those works. And it's the full.
That's clear, and I appreciate the answer. Just to, there's a concern here because I guess after the January incident, staff did a safety inspection out of an abundance of caution. We had been told, but it obviously feels insufficient now because it seems we need more aggressive steps, and maybe that'll come in 2024 as you're talking about. It's just, this isn't a matter of just caution, it's a matter of the tunnel repeatedly having debris falling from the ceiling, and obviously we need to acknowledge it. The tunnel is a problem, and I guess the public and others need to know more about what the problem is, where it happened, how it happened, and what the tunnel structure's history is. It's not clear to me from the report back in April that the city has been diligent in its inspections of the tunnel, and it seems that we may look for some reasons to not do those inspections. And regarding the issue in January, there were warning signs, right? There was concrete cracking as far back as 2020 through that access to information that the media had brought out, and some of the issues were identified as urgent in that access. Yet it doesn't seem that enough was done because the debris actually started falling on the track. And so did the same thing happen with the current issue? Was like, did we have the information letting us know about the problem from that 2020 report?
I'll let staff answer, and then I'll pause you, Councilor Menard, in case we have any other folks who have questions.
That's fine, Chair.
Yeah, so I think we've spoken a lot about the water infiltration. Richard, was there something else you may have wanted to add that might be helpful for the councillor?
Well, maybe to add some additional context. So I think the trigger for the investigation that occurred a few days ago was different to back in January. So back in January, the trigger for further investigation was because concrete debris was found during a regular guideway walk. And so there were lumps of concrete that were found mixed in with the ballast at track level. That is not the case in this recent situation. This recent situation was, the investigation was triggered as a consequence of discoloration of the ceiling panels. So further investigation was completed, a scissor lift was brought in. We had engineers that went up at the high level to have a look at the ceiling panels. And once they started looking behind the ceiling panels, that's when there was concern raised about corrosion of the support structure to the ceiling panels. So that was really the trigger, which is different to the situation back in January.
Chair, I'm in your hands. I don't see other hands up. Are you
Well,
permitting me to continue, or?
Here's what I'd like to do. First of all, I know we have a few councillor assistants who may be attending as delegates of councillors, and we did say off the top that we'd give you a chance. If you had a question on behalf of a councillor, please put your hand up. Or if there's any other councillors who wanted to ask a question, who haven't asked before, who'd like to ask a question on a second round, you can put your hands up now. I'm not seeing any. So Councilor Menard, if you have an additional question, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the concern or question really that gets to the heart of this is the issues might be different in terms of the water infiltration versus the issue we saw in January, but that January issue should have sparked more inspections of the tunnel, and we were told that the rest of it was safe and complete, and it appears that that's not the case because of the incident that just occurred in the last 5 days. So would we have had the information of this, and it appears we did in 2020, but would we have had more information if we did the scheduled inspections that were supposed to have been done in 2022 on all 4 of those structures? And furthermore, regarding the January issue, staff said it wasn't uncommon for 40-year-old tunnels. Is the current issue uncommon or not?
Councillor, aging concrete infrastructure will have some delamination, as noted. We are also aware of the water infiltration, and so there have been a number of efforts put into place in order to mitigate this. Back in January, there was, the primary goal was to get the train service back up and running. And so the focus was certainly taking a look at those areas and making sure that that was okay. But this also recognized that we need to schedule the OSIM and get the OSIM inspection So this is underway, and we have the opportunity to take a look at that roof behind the panels. We had a good work over the weekend, and so the inspection work that will be completed this year will certainly inform our next capital improvements. And I think to go back to 2024, I think it's worthwhile saying that 95% of the rest of when you take a look at the entire structure, it is in good state of repair. We do have some localized areas that we need to address, and this is what we're going to be doing.
Okay, and Chair, I'll just say and conclude, and other people can jump in as needed. But the reason why this is so important is that obviously we've had a lot of issues with the LRT since it's launched, and we need to make sure the public feels safe, that they feel secure, that they want to be on this line and taking the trains that we've invested so much in. And in order to do that, we need to show that we're doing regular inspections, not skipping inspections when obviously there is a concern, and investing in the fixes needed so that we inspire confidence in the public, because we've already had such difficulties with that. So, obviously this is a safety issue. It's also a public confidence issue. And really hope that, the tunnel is properly inspected, as I said, in April, and that we don't have any other issues until that we're waiting for that 2024 procurement. In the meantime, has everything been looked at to make sure that it is safe and secure? I'll ask this again, like I asked in April, is everything now going to be safe and secure until that procurement takes place in 2024, as staff have mentioned?
What I can speak to the tunnel, and perhaps Richard can confirm around the suspended ceiling. We have received engineering sign-off around the safety of the tunnel, which was all the work that was done over the weekend around the station platform.
Okay, thank you to staff. Thanks, Chair.
And I can just confirm as well, for the suspended ceiling structure, we have engineering sign-off that all the hazards associated with any concern about falling debris have been mitigated. So that's been signed off as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Chair Gower. I'm trying to reconcile that that there has been engineering sign-off with regard to the falling debris, while at the same time understanding that delamination is not uncommon in an older concrete structure. Is there an external standard, or is there some kind of guideline that oversees the broader application of tunnel systems like this? I'm assuming that this isn't the only older concrete tunnel that services transit systems. I would assume that delamination may not be uncommon, but I don't know how I can give confidence to transit riders that there may not be concrete falling while we hold to a standard where delamination is not uncommon. So I guess my question is, what are the standards that we're upholding ourselves to in order to ensure that transit riders have the utmost confidence that this is a completely safe system to be using?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I can start. Thank you for the question. For sure, when we have a doubt, we stop everything. I think this is paramount for us, that. So what we have done during the weekend, it was exactly for the safety reason. We didn't want to take any risk, so we did what we have to do and unfortunately we had to skip the station because of that. And we knew that it was an annoying situation, but we didn't want to take any risk. So on that side, I would say that we're very crystal clear. And I think as well that you heard that we have a lot of inspections in place, and we are doing our due diligence. This is an aging tunnel, as my colleague just said. And for sure, Tammy and I and our team, we will sit together and see what else we can put in place to make sure that we can be maybe more proactive, knowing now that this aging tunnel will be a concern for sure, which is normal for a 40 years old tunnel. So we will do our due diligence, and we will continue to work collaboratively to make sure that we can be more proactive and be on top of everything.
Councillor Hill, any follow-up?
No, Councillor Glenn. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I think we're at the end of our questions from councillors. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions. Next up will be the media availability. So we're going to take a short 10-minute break and we'll return for questions from the media. Prenons maintenant une pause de 15 minutes. À notre retour,
We're going to take a 15-minute break, and when we come back, we will have immediate availability. Thank you very much.
Here, I will start admitting the media in very shortly. About 15 seconds, we'll get going. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us today. My name is
Good afternoon, everybody.
I'll be your moderator. Before we begin, please note that this press conference includes simultaneous interpretation services. It's available either in full French or in full English. If you're watching live, you can find our stream in each language on YouTube. Simply search our channels at City of Ottawa or Ville d'Ottawa. A note to media outlets joining us on Zoom. If you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon on the bottom menu, then select your preferred language. You can ask your questions in the language of your choice. Available to answer questions from the media today, we have Councillor Glenn Gower, Chair of the Transit Commission, René Amilcar, General Manager, Transit Services, Tammy Rose, General Manager, Infrastructure and Water Services, Richard Holder, Director, Engineering Services, Troy Charter, Director, Transit Service Delivery and Rail Operations, Sue Johns, Director, Asset Management Services, and Enrique Martinez Asensio, General Manager, Rideau Transit Maintenance. I will now invite each media agency to ask their questions. You may ask one question with one follow-up. We will now start with Elise Skura at CBC.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we heard a little bit in the counselor session there about the fact that this was not caught in the January inspections. I just want to be clear. So why in the January inspections did people not look at whether or not there was this kind of corrosion underneath the ceiling tiles?
Tammy, can you answer this one, please?
Yes, thank you for the question. So back in January, we had been concerned with concrete delamination, which had caused some of that concrete to separate and fall onto the tracks. The purpose and the main goal was to return the service as quickly as possible. So the inspections that were done were focused on that section. And we also knew that we were going to come back later this year, very soon, to conduct the full OSIM inspection. And I think it would be noted that, the falling of concrete was not the main trigger for the issue that took place over the weekend.
Okay, and I guess my second question is related to the ceiling tiles themselves. Is there an issue with the ceiling tiles that they obscure something that would make it hard to do these kinds of visual inspections? And if so, are we not going to see the ceiling tiles return?
Enrique, can you comment on the color, and I will talk about the return after.
Yeah, the coloration that we have identified on the ceiling tiles is just a symptom of the water infiltrations that are in this area. So we use that to identify which areas are affected by potentially affected by corrosion. So regarding the permanent removal of the tiles, I think it's to the city to decide.
Yeah, so we will debrief and we'll take the best decision. So today it's too early to take this kind of decision. However, we have removed them and they will stay stuck until we come back with the full solution for the leaks, and then we'll take the decision if we should bring them back or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Elise. We will now go to Leah Larocque, CTV.
Hello, can you hear me?
All good.
Awesome. I'm just wondering if you can expand on the complexity of the work that had to get done. You mentioned it was near the catenary system. So just wondering if you can maybe expand on what was done and why it took 5 days for it to do. So I guess my question is for Madame Amakar or anybody who can speak to that.
Thank you, Leah. I will ask Richard to answer to you, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. I would say that there were 3 phases to the work that took place over the last several days. So once the initial trigger occurred of the visual corrosion that was seen on the underside of one of the ceiling panels, we started to do an investigation as to the cause of that discoloration. And so we went through several hours, up to a couple of days of just investigating the reasons for the discoloration for the panels, the corrosion that was seen within the structural elements of the suspended ceiling. But in addition to that, there were also areas of concern related to the concrete roof slab. And so that concern was precipitated by discoloration of the concrete, by signs of some visible cracking, and efflorescence, which is a calcium buildup that looks like a stalactite that was dripping down from the top of the roof slab. So we had the investigative phase, which was undertaken both by engineers who working for consulting firms for RTG on the ceiling infrastructure. We also had engineers working through Infrastructure and Water Services Department, more structural engineers who were looking at the concrete roof slab. Once that investigation phase had been complete, we then moved into a remediation phase where there was, very quickly a plan of work was developed. Access needed to be made again, such that we could get contractors in to remove sections of the structural ceiling panel work that needed to be removed. We made the decision to actually remove all the ceiling panels out of an abundance of caution, and also to assist with the access to areas of the roof slab. And in addition, we had a concrete contractor on site that was able to complete soundings of the roof slab to deal with areas of concern around spalling concrete or delamination. Once we went through that remedial phase, which took another couple of days, we were working where possible. We were working during regular service hours when we knew there was no impact to train operations. But there were sections of work that required us to work at night with the OCS shut down. And so we had at least 2 nights worth of work where we were able to work above the guideway, above the OCS, to complete our work. And then finally, through the last evening, we completed inspection work. So the inspection work was to allow us to get final sign-off by 3 groups. So we had sign-off from the engineers that were providing the inspection for the ceiling structure. We had sign-off for the structural engineer for the roof slab. And we also had sign-off on the remaining ceiling panels that are currently located over the staircases. And we also had sign-off that those existing structures were also safe and provided no hazard to passengers. So with those sign-offs from those 3 groups, we were able to open up the platforms this morning for regular passenger service.
Excellent, thank you. And pardon if I missed this, in the presentation, it said that further remediation work will take place. So I'm just wondering, what will that be, or what will that look like?
Richard or Sue?
Maybe I can start off with just kind of more generally the work that's still required, and to provide some context. We set an objective for ourselves, all the different teams that were involved in this exercise. The objective was to as quickly as possible return Saint Laurent Station to safe passenger service. So that is what we have done with the hazards mitigated. But we know that further work is going to be required. So the larger inspection related to OSIM on the roof slab, maybe I'll ask my colleague Sue Jones to talk about that. But we will also now need to come up with a plan for the replacement of those elements of the ceiling structure which have been removed. And we will also have the opportunity to look at what other measures we can put in place to mitigate any possibility of future damage to other infrastructure. But I'll hand it over to my colleague, Sue Jones, to talk about the OSIM inspection.
Thanks, Richard. I think I'm going to first comment on the remedial measures that were in the question. One of the things that passengers will notice that is different, in addition to all the ceiling panels are down, which is quite dramatic, is there is a couple of localized areas near the boarding area of the platform where we've had to install a fine mesh attached to the concrete ceiling in an area where our plan was to remove the concrete and not have the risk of any debris falling. And once we got into that specific area, we said, you know what? To make sure nothing has a risk of falling, we're going to install mesh at that localized area. That area will need more work in the coming months because it's not in a state, it's in a temporary state. It is safe, and that is an area we will continue to monitor. It has a reasonable lifespan in its current form. So that's one of the remedial measures. The 2024 OSIM inspection will be across all 4 structures, all elements inside the tunnel, as well as on the surface of the structure. And that will give us, likely it will give us a list of things that need to be done. That would be a second input to things that we have to do. We've already made mention of the fact that we've done a bunch of work to try and mitigate leakage. We'd like to do some more investigative work to see if we can continue to reduce leakage. So we have several elements that will come together in a list of work that we'll implement on a priority basis. But for sure, we know that there are works to come at this tunnel in the future. In a way, we'll manage the work in a way that preserves our service to the customers.
Thank you. That was great.
Thanks, Leah. We will now go to Catherine Morrison at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi there. Thanks so much for all of your time today. I'm just hoping to get some clarification on a question that was asked during the last portion. I'm just wondering if you can share whether and which inspections were skipped on which structures in 2022, if any, and if you can clarify whether the incidents that took place over the past few days were in any of those structures.
Demi, please.
Merci, René. I will invite Sue to provide some of those details, please.
Thank you, René.
Today, I am not familiar enough with the separation of those 4 structures to be able to correlate the areas that we've done work with those structures. I will speak about the fact that our last complete inspection, according to the Ontario Structural Inspection Manual, was in 2020. The manual provides that if you are under construction, the need for the inspection is waived in favor of construction proceeding. So in 2022 and in 2023, there was a construction project on the surface of the tunnel in an attempt to mitigate leakage. And so the OSIM inspections in 2022 that would have happened in the absence of construction did not occur as the construction had priority over that. I'm going to stop there because I can't remember the detail of your question. So if I haven't answered everything, please follow up.
No, I think that's perfect. Thank you. And I guess my second question would be, I know it was mentioned that there's a rigorous process in place to ensure the ongoing safety of customers and staff. Can you share a little bit more about what that entails, please?
Sure. First, we have routine inspection, and we can say that process works because it's exactly what happened with the situation that we are talking about today. And we have oversight as well when we're dealing with our contractors, RTM, RTG, and we are working collaboratively. We are learning about our some potential non-proactive actions. And when we have a doubt, we stop everything. So we don't take any risk. I think it's the most important.
Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. We will now go to Robert Hiltz at Ottawa Lookout.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I guess my first question is that you'd mentioned that further inspections were planned later this year. Do you regret not moving those up because of the shutdown that we've just had to go through of the station?
René, tu veux que je pose la
Vas-y,
question?
ouais.
Okay.
Would you like me to answer? Yes, I will do so.
Infrastructure and water services and asset management, with the city's responsibility and ownership of all our assets, the safety and integrity of those is of utmost importance. And so we take the inspection seriously as well. And we are proceeding. We are going to start the OSIM inspections within the next few weeks. And so we are proceeding very quickly on that. And we will be speaking in terms of, is there anything else, given what we now know about the tunnel and the events that have taken place? Is there anything else that we need to do? Those will be ongoing conversations with our partners to evaluate that and come up with a plan.
That was actually kind of part of my follow-up. Just given what's happened, and I know it may be early, but how are you, or how has it maybe changed how you're looking at doing inspections, not just in the LRT system, but looking at the sort of, especially the broader transit system where there are many older pieces of infrastructure that have been around sort of similar lengths of time? Like, has there been any change of approach? Are you looking at doing inspections sooner or anything like that?
I can answer a little bit, and I will go over to Tammy to complete. I would say, and it was a reflex that I had. So we had RTM to verify the other stations, even if we knew that we didn't have anything there. So, we wanted to be proactive, and fortunately they said, hey, it's a weekly or bi-weekly inspection that we have installed, and so it was great to hear that. And so I think this kind of initiative, we can continue to take them. However, we will continue to work on our rigorous processes. This is the most important, I think, and we will continue to learn for sure, because it's we have lessons learned on with this situation, and we will continue to try to do better next time for sure. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Et maintenant, Frédéric Pépin, Radio-Canada.
Frédéric Lepère. Yes, thank you for answering our questions today. And to you, Ms. Amilcar, what are you telling passengers? What statement would you like to make to the passengers who are already using the tunnels and the infrastructure? What can you tell them that should be reassuring for them about the security in the corridors or in the tunnels, or any things that might fall either on the rails or even on the platforms? What could you tell them to reassure them? Thank you for the question. First of all, I like my life and I take the train. So if I go through the tunnel, if I go through the corridors, that means I am sure that the whole work that had to be accomplished has been accomplished. Now, we will be carrying out, as we mentioned a moment ago, even more inspections to make sure that the process itself is a sound one, which should reassure our travelers and the clients. Of course, that meant that we had to stop the service at the Saint Laurent station. However, that demonstrates that in spite of the fact that we would be criticized, we decided to give priority and to give precedence to security and safety. That is my promise. Today, in the update that you gave today to the elected people, the question of shared custody between the city and the maintenance transit group. So, who is going to pay? Is it them? Since there is a double shared custody, who will be paying for the bill? Well, normally, I say let's provide a service and let's haggle about who's going to pay later. And you know that the books were open. Everybody knew what the condition was for the St. Lawrence Tunnel. That was no secret, and it is for RTG to install the necessary support for the suspended panels. So maybe they should have used the galvanized steel for those supports. However, everything that has to look with the inspection, and that was done by the Tamaruz team, it was the city, because that was structure that belongs to the city. Now, what has to do with the early deterioration of the brackets and potentially the panels, that is RTM's responsibility. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, René.
We will now go through a second round of question for any media members who have any additional questions. I would advise maybe putting your hand up on Zoom, and then we can go one by one again for those who do have any additional questions. I see Catherine Morrison, Ottawa citizen. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm actually just wondering if you can please repeat your last answer in English regarding kind of the financial responsibilities. Thank you.
Sure. As I said, the LRT infrastructure in the Ontario is under responsibility of RTG. It's RTG who bid on them, and when they had to install the bracket and the suspended ceiling in the Saint Laurent Tunnel, they knew that this tunnel had to face with some leaks. So it was their responsibility to put adequate, I would say, brackets and suspended ceiling there. However, the cost for the inspection of the tunnel will be under the city's responsibility because it's a city asset.
Okay, thank you. And is there any, estimate at all of how much this has cost over the past few days and how much it might in the coming days and weeks and months?
No, so our top priority was to resume the service quickly and safely.
Thanks, René. We will go to Elise Gura at CBC.
Thank you very much for allowing the additional question. So I know that in the 2020 inspections that we looked at through access to information, that there was some delamination that had happened over the platform, and I was just wondering whether that was in the same spot or whether that sparked any concern to check over the platform more often.
Tammy or Sue, maybe?
Sue?
The guideway was completely inspected during the January of 2024. I'm not sure I entirely understand your question. The 2020 OSM did identify some issues to be addressed, and those were addressed inside the tunnel. There are a couple of remedial items that were of a longer duration to implement, less risk immediately, and those will be part of our ongoing work, our future remedial work. But the scope of the over the guideway is not part of the geography of concern for the weekend's work. The trains continue to operate safely under the concrete roof slab that was the subject of our discussions and inspections in January.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I was just wondering because I was just looking at the pictures and it did mention some of that severe delamination that had been found seemed to be in an area where these joints are, the joints that I gather have had some corrosion. So I just wondered if after 2020 these joints were inspected more often.
And does it say expansion joints? I'm not. You have the document, I don't have it. So
okay, I'm so sorry.
I think
Yeah, it said joint D over the eastbound LRT track. So it's
Okay.
kind of beside it.
Oh, Sue, I believe you're on.
Yeah, I got myself. The geography of the four structures, and across the structures, there are a series of expansion joints. They're visible from the top. You can see them on the bus loop, for example. So I believe the expansion joints are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F. I think it goes to G. And so that gives us a transverse across the tunnel location. So the 2020 OSAM information about the expansion joints would have been an input to the capital project that Ms. Rose spoke about earlier, that we had a series of inputs and resulted in the capital project that was completed at the end of 2023. So it was scoped during 2021 and then designed and tendered for completion last year. So a subset of those 2020 OSAM recommendations would have been addressed in that recent capital project completed.
Okay, great. I think I understand. So the capital project that focused on the water infiltration.
That's correct.
Thank you. We will go to Leah Larocque, CTV.
Hello, thanks for taking the extra question. This might be a pretty obvious question, but I'm going to ask it. The explanation of what exactly happened was technical, but so how would you explain to riders who are on the system right now, who maybe don't know what delamination of ceiling tiles is? Would you be able to explain to them what exactly happened and what was the risk that required you to close down Saint Laurent Station?
Fabi?
J'aurais pensé peut-être Richard avec la
I
question.
would have thought Richard, perhaps, regarding the degree of risks and closing of a station. Yes, no problem.
I think you made a comment about the delamination of the ceiling panels. So that's not a completely accurate characterization of the issue. So we've talked about the two elements of the infrastructure. We've talked about the concrete roof slab, and there have been through the investigations, there have areas have been identified where the underside of that roof slab has some spalling concrete and some delaminated concrete. So what that means is we have very thin slices of concrete below the reinforcing steel that has become loose for various reasons, partly the corrosion of some reinforcement steel, partly the ingress of water. We need to do further investigation on that. But in terms of the issue with the ceiling panels, through the investigation, we discovered that some of the support elements, so supporting cables, supporting bolts that are attached to the concrete slab and supporting members, that there was some corrosion that had taken place. So the reason to close the station temporarily is to fully investigate all those areas where we have concern over the viability of that infrastructure, and where necessary, mitigate. And so we have mitigated with the ceiling panel by removing the ceiling tiles and removing sections of corroded ceiling structure. And for the roof slab, any elements of loose concrete have been chipped away. And as was mentioned earlier on, there are I think there are 3 locations where steel netting has been attached to the roof slab to temporarily hold loose concrete in place until we develop a bigger rehabilitation plan. And that's something that we're working on now.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to follow up, but I'll throw it out there. It's still not clear what exactly is causing the water damage, like where it's coming from or the infiltration. It's the root cause is still being investigated. Am I understanding that correctly?
This is correct.
Thank you.
Et maintenant, Frédéric Pépin, Radio-Canada.
Frédéric Pépin, Radio-Canada. Yeah, to follow up my CTV's colleague's question, are you contemplating removing completely the concrete slabs? So are you contemplating just removing completely that structure, which already in the past had provoked a number of drops? Well, my colleague Tammy Rose said that following the 2020 inspection, 95% of the tunnel structure was judged sound and safe, which means that the city will do what it takes to keep those 95% safe and then operate for the remaining 5%. As to the ceiling structure, it's the same thing as for your house. If you wanted to reach the cables or anything else, you have to bring down the ceiling, and and so that's what we did in order to intervene between the 2 layers. But it doesn't question the strength, the solidity of the ceiling itself. It is also an aesthetic issue because we want the finishings to look good. So it's not directly linked at all to the 95%, which has been judged safe and sound. And we already, nevertheless, started 2 capital projects in order to address the leaks but we had to remain to leave a passage. And we know that this tunnel is 40 years old, so we need to have much more frequent inspections in order to take stock of a situation and do the monitoring of the tunnel as you would for a 40-year-old house. Thank you so much. And this concludes our media availability.